You say we feared the ocean's edge, there were no lands to find. You call us children of the mud, with neither chart nor flame, but bones of ships beneath your seas still whisper out our name. Before your clocks began to tick, we measured stars in stone. We carved the sky in granite arcs the heavens call their own. Our temples face the solstice fire, our homes kiss the sea. The tides were pages, winds were words, the earth our memory. You think we had no written tongue, no script of subtle art, yet rivers bend where runes were laid in landscape and in heart. We read the flight of silver birds, the spiral of the shell, and every mountain ridge became a sacred sentinel. You boast of engines, wires, and codes that flicker in the night, yet tremble when the sun goes dark and screens deny you light. Your wisdom leans on fragile walls of numbers stacked like sand, a castle built on borrowed time, unmapped and shifting land. We crossed the waters when the moon pulled silver through the foam. Our cedar ribs and woven sails carried us far from home. The currents were our hidden roads, the stars our compass bright. We spoke with whales in thundered depths and steered by ancient light. You say the past was primitive, a slow and crawling age, yet you cannot hear the forest's pulse nor read the planet's page. Your towers rise in arrogance, defying root and rain, while deserts bloom where once you swore eternal growth and gain. We shaped the stone with patient hands that listened as they struck, for rock is bone of Mother Earth and yields to those who are blunt. Net luck of chance, but reverence earned in silence long and deep, where secrets older than the seas awaken from their sleep. You severed sky from soil and named the fractured progress bold, and traded living myths of fire for circuits, glass and gold. Yet when your satellites grow blind and metal falters fast, you'll seek the songs you cast away, you'll seek the wisdom of the past. We were not shadows in the mist, nor myths your books dismiss. Our footprints rest on every shore your maps have dared to kiss. The oceans were no barriers, but mirrors wide and blue, reflecting back the voyager in me and you. So hear me, child of hurried breath, before your towers fall. The earth remembers everything she is, the oldest, hear her throne, and silent consumes your fragile throne, and silence fills the air. Return to stone, return to star, and find that we are there.
I was muted. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Roundtable, episode 9. Jason just arrived from his journey, so he's
No,
still
I'm on the
journeying.
road.
He's still on the road.
I'm still on the road. I pulled into a cookout to get a cheeseburger, and I have a couple of 13-year-olds here in the car who are easily embarrassed. So I probably will not make you guys endure having to listen to laughter, even though it really is pretty enjoyable. But I wanted to hop on and say hey to everybody, see how everybody was doing, and all that. I hate being out here on the road and when we've got things to do, but it is what it is. We do everything we can for our children. How are you guys doing?
Not too
Welcome,
bad.
welcome, Rick. Welcome,
Excellent.
Vincent.
Welcome, guys. So listen, I guess I'm gonna hop. I'm gonna keep it on mute
Sure.
and just listen along and be here
Okay. Thank you.
and be doing
Enjoy
hopefully
your
about 70
cheeseburger.
miles an hour home to the computer.
Yeah, and just drive safe. And
Yes.
You got it, bro.
we are going to start with a piece recommended by Rick, and that we are going to watch, and then Rick is going to give us some points about it. So let me just share my screen. Chrome tab. Share with audio. I hope it's on the screen. And let me put this into play. Why is this so small? Can you see the whole
Want to
image?
learn a
Okay.
simple navigation trick using the stars in the night sky? Well, here's one everybody should know. First, pick out a bright star and align it with a fixed object like this treetop. You can grab a long branch for this as well if that's easier. Now just wait a few minutes and observe the star moving across the night sky. It moves to the left, you're facing north. It moves to the right, you're facing south. It moves up, you're facing east. It moves down, you're facing west. It really is that simple. Get out with your loved ones and practice this awesome technique. This message brought to you by Thomas Quinn Survival Schools, the best trained team.
And to all of the archaeologists who say that ancient men could not navigate, it really is that simple. Now, having said that, having said that, I sent you another image. I don't know if you got it or not, Ricardo, but I sent you an email. And it is an image showing the Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, at various times of the year, the four seasons. And I hope you can find that. But
You want an image of the Big Dipper?
yeah, no, well, the one I sent you though, because it shows it in four different positions
Oh, you
over four
sent me
points.
again?
Yeah, sent it to you
Oh,
again.
okay. Not for you. Here it is. Here it is. Let me.
And for 15,000 years that we can trace pretty well, the image you're about to see was a sign of good luck. And that is if you are actually about to see it someday soon.
Just a second.
I think Vince knows where I'm going with this.
There it is. Let me open up.
You're gonna go to the swastika. That's where you're going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. But it also is part of that whole orienteering thing because if you know what time of the year it is, which most people can keep track of that pretty well, and you look at the sky and you see the Big Dipper, you can tell what direction it is, other than the north, by the way. The North Star is right in the middle there. So
So
that is,
those poor bastards that built Stonehenge, they could just use the Big Dipper.
they were using the Big Dipper for some things. But the Big Dipper doesn't always point in the same direction. The North Star does. The Big Dipper is always in the north sky, but it's pointing in different directions from the North Star at different times of the year.
Yeah, and I've watched it. It's my years of amateur astronomer. And in fact, the first thing I learned as a child was in astronomy was to connect the two stars of the end of the Big Dipper, make a line, and you get to the North Star.
Yeah.
And if you
times
are
that
not
light.
seeing it, the Big Dipper, then look for Cassiopeia. It's a big W in the sky, and then you'll find the Big Dipper,
Yeah.
and then you'll find the North Star. There's no mistaking where's the North. As long as you can see the stars, there's no mistaking it.
Right. So the other function of this, as you know what time of year it is, and you can watch the movement of Ursa Major around the North Star, you can also use that as a clock.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. That rotates at about 1 degree every 4 minutes. So throughout the night, as long as you can see Ursa Major and the North Star, if you could set a stick, which is actually pretty easy, you could watch the progression over time.
So Sarah, let me know if there is still a fan in the background. I just unplugged everything that was here. So Rick, can you give us an explanation on how more or less you would do that if you are in a situation that you need to know time and you are in the wilderness? How would you do that? You stack you put a stake on the ground, you make a circle with a line or another stake. What
Or
would
just
you
like
use?
in the video, pick a tall tree that you can line up with it and watch the change. And you know at what time of year that particular tree is in that particular spot related to Ursa Major, like say out the door of your hut, as an example, or the post of your, or the gnomon of your sundial that you can't use at night, but you can see from your hut or your palace, as the case may be.
So let's imagine that you are on a boat, right? And you don't have a watch. You have to keep a record from land and then follow the stars, or how do you count until you manage to finally see the stars? You count by the sun?
You count by the sun for the number of days you are from your beginning point, but that doesn't help you on your longitude. What helps you on your longitude is fixed stars, like say the North Star, or any good bright star that you can see and have an almanac for. The almanac is very important to the process of finding longitude. And that almanac is the difference of what you would see from home, from your latitude, your mean, Greenwich mean time, so to speak, your zero latitude, to the latitude, longitude where you are. So that difference is what you find in your almanac and your calculation.
So
A distance between, say, a fixed star, Cassiopeia is a good one, and say the moon on a given date at a specific time of day, which the almanac has tables for all that, and it will tell you where you are when you reverse that calculation. Now, measuring that distance between the moon and that star is easy if you have the right tools, and that right tool is a chain of a given diameter of length and the number of lengths, and it's always made out of gold, by the way.
So I can see the skeptics saying, yeah, but you can't do. You're talking about an almanac. When did that almanac became a reality? Because they did have no writing, or they had no paper, or how do you solve that question?
Go look at the Sumerian tablets. They were doing all these calculations for a reason. It wasn't for the heck of it. The ancient Greeks did. The ancient Greeks had an almanac that was good to about 3 arc seconds for over 2,000 objects in the sky by one guy. His name was Hipparchus.
Hipparchus?
Yeah. The Mayans did it 1,200, 1,300 years ago.
That's
We're
right.
pretty sure the Egyptians did it 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago.
Even the
And
Chinese.
when we say, yeah, Stonehenge, the Irish longbows, all these things are related to these sky features and time. The two went together.
So, yeah, and the theory that they didn't have any written record is interesting because, I mean, they had the constellations that were known across the world, and they had names for the constellations that matched. And if
In a
you
lot
look
of cases, yeah.
if you look at the Big Dipper, like we were talking about, if you don't mind, I'll share my screen.
Okay, let's stop sharing.
Okay.
It's sometimes it's already time for someone to take over it.
Okay, so the Big Dipper is known as the Great Bear constellation, the Great Bear Ursa Major. So Big Dipper was one of the most recognizable constellations in the night sky, and like Rick was saying, it rotates based on the seasons, and and there's also a really interesting Chinese legend about this. This is the legend of Zhu Bishan and the Raft Cup. And Zhu Bishan was a Chinese silversmith. And back in around 1400, this is the Raft Cup that Zhu Bishan created. And it's it's made of silver. It's actually an art cup, and this is the emperor, kind of the whole view of the Raft Cup. The open end where the liquid would be dispensed is over here, and the emperor is sitting on this log, a raft log, and holding a tablet in his hand. And on the tablet, it has written on it, "Loom supporting stone." And the story is that he was adrift in the night sky, and as he was floating along, he saw a great bear, a bear on the bank of the river, and paddled quickly to try to get away from it. And then later on in his trip, after he escaped the bear, he saw a weaver maiden, complete with her loom and shuttles, and he asked, "Where am I?" And she didn't say a word, but she gave him this stone tablet that he's holding, and the tablet says "Loom supporting stone." So she took this stone out from underneath her loom and handed it to him. And so the moral, or the thought, is that he was traveling on the moon as it passed across the path of the Big Dipper, the Great Bear, and went to the Weaver constellation in the sky, and then brought this back to Earth with him from the Loom Weaver constellation. And this is a raft cup that was made in honor of that story. And
Because I was listening to you and I was thinking, if he's running away from the bear, he's moving south, and he's moving south when the moon is on the horizon, which give us more or less a time frame. But you then translated it in a different way. So I was just thinking it was indicating that he was moving away from the Big Dipper, so it was traveling south. And it was the moon that gave the knowledge to the tablet for the calculations.
right, and this raft cup has been analyzed. It's that they're saying it was dated from around 1300 to 1362. It's almost 1400 AD. There's this is the story that it was translated to. It says, "Wishing to visit the Milky Way, but the early crescent moon was on the way. Indeed, in vain the people are talking about crossing the Silver Bay. Why return merely with a slab of the loom supporting stone without reaching the brocade, without searching for the brocade of the celestial maid?" And so it's really interesting that the Milky Way and the celestial maid is symbolized here and written about on this Chinese raft cup. And Zhu Bishan was a great silversmith. He created a lot of these raft cups, and he would inscribe them with Chinese it says, there were many varieties of these across the time frame of the 1300s to 1400s, and this was right when the the traveling voyages of the Chinese spanned the globe. So I mean, they were transmitting this knowledge all the way, as we found, to places like North Carolina, where they left a medallion, and they visited the place near Mount Pishka, and called Asheville, North Carolina.
Talking about the Chinese?
Yeah, the Chinese actually traveled all the way to North Carolina back in the 1340s to the 1450s, and
We
they-
just lost 95% of the academics that were watching.
well,
But the record shows it. The Chinese record shows it.
well, take a look. I mean, there's a medallion that was found there in Asheville or Ashland, North Carolina, and
What do they say about that medallion?
it was marked with a emperor's signification. I mean, the sign of the emperor was on there, and it was confirmed to date from the time of Feng Tu, and
And that is?
around 1450.
And they arrive on the west coast?
Yeah, in Ashland.
No.
I mean, they arrived near, and they even recorded in their journals great detail about the culture and what they saw, and and they kept a journal of it that was translated. And
So, but Rick was saying they arrived from the Atlantic, not the Pacific?
And from the Gulf as well.
From the Gulf, okay.
yeah, they went through the Atlantic to the Gulf and all the way up to Cahokia, Illinois. I mean, in Illinois, they saw Cahokia Mountains. But this raft cup in particular is really interesting because it was inscribed, and they have details about the construction of it, and they tested the metallurgy, and the type of metal was analyzed for silver alloys, and it was carefully analyzed. So this is the analysis results from the raft cup. So it's mostly silver. It has some copper, gold, and lead included in it. But these results are really interesting because they're comparing the analytical data of the other Yuan Dynasty pieces from 4 other objects. You can see their silver composition is very close. They have almost the same amount of copper and gold. Percentages are the same.
And they know what is the origin of that copper?
So they're saying here, analysis of the 4 silver objects have been made. They believe, I guess, these are from Tibet, and they're established strong ties to China. So the 3 Tibetan vessels exhibit Chinese influence, and they're so likely from Central or Eastern Asia.
This week I've been trying to look for the different types of how copper was transported. So we have the oxide ingots that can be either plano-convex with the 4 arms that almost like a pelt. We have fat needles that are unequal on one side and the other. They are thicker on one side or the other, like big drops or stegaltites, if I'm saying it correctly. And I'm looking for what happened here. And I'm looking for Rick. Do you know what are the types of shapes exactly that we find in the records? Is there anything that looks like a cube or a brick or?
Well, it's something that looks like a bun. That's why they call it a bun ingot.
The
It's
bun
just
is
a
like
blob.
a needle and the planoconvex folded on top of it, a small one.
No, no, a bun ingot is a lump. Basically, like if you had a loaf of bread that wasn't baked and you just put the dough out, that's what a bun ingot looks like.
So it wouldn't
And
be
when,
symmetrical.
no, it's not symmetrical. It's kind of roundish. It's kind of ovoid, but mostly roundish.
And
Uh, and then the bars, which is what I would call your needle-like thing, bar ingots.
so there's no objects that are like I don't know how to say it in English, like
That needle.
a rectangle or a cube, but in 3D. I don't know how to say it in English.
In a square cross section, but a long piece.
Yes.
Is that okay? That is a type of awl. It's a tool rather than an ingot. And typically, they're not much bigger, not any bigger than your little finger, my little finger.
No, I'm looking for a big one. So it would be
That'd be a bar ingot.
this big, like a imagine 4 bars of gold on top of one another, but in symmetrical shape. That more or less that size. And
Well,
the literature keeps saying me.
Plate.
Yeah, the literature keep pointing me to the Middle East and some parts of Anatolia, but I can't exactly find what I'm looking for. So they are not even, they are not perfectly geometrical. And so I thought,
And they're not uniform either.
yes.
So, this presentation is from Lori Bonner Nicholas, and it talks about the treasure fleet that arrived in North Carolina. And so she says it's where in the Thing 2 are we? I guess is the title of the presentation. And so she tracks the voyage, and she translated this journal from the Chinese. And this was a treasure fleet that literally traveled across the world and made it to North Carolina and even to Cahokia. And so the Feng Tu treasure fleet recorded this journal, and these were the voyages of San Bayo Unich. She goes on to translate the journals that were made into English, and it's the only English translation, or the first time it was translated into English was by Lori.
So
And
this would be the trip that inadvertently helped the Portuguese to reach India.
So I think they went through India and then to Italy, and from that point then they went on to the Gulf of Mexico and to
From India to Italy, it's a big jump around
Yeah.
Africa.
yeah, it is absolutely they were traveling.
Yeah, they stopped in Madagascar. They stopped in Liberia, what is now Liberia. They stopped in Mauritania, Tunisia,
I'm saying this
Saudi
because
Arabia.
in the Portuguese chronicles, they were very well received by the populations on East Africa, right? And that's because they had this idea of a treasure fleet that arrives and gives gifts, because these treasure ships, they give small pieces of gold or small pieces of jewelry or semi-precious stones or whatever. They were considered treasures. In fact, it was a treasure fleet, right?
And
And so
porcelain. Lots of porcelain.
when the Portuguese arrived, the people thought that heard their grandfathers talk about this. They still had this idea of big ships coming. Of course, the Portuguese were in small ships compared to the Chinese, but very small indeed. But still, they didn't. So the 2 or 3 generations had passed, so the memory of it was not the same, and they thought, oh, more treasure, but no, just chickens and some cloth. But they still guide them to India. They were very well received because of that. It was very lucky for them. Although the Portuguese don't like to recognize that happened because the Chinese had done the opposite direction before them and went around the Cape of Good Hope, that the Portuguese like to say it was they were the first to do it.
But here's the medallion that I was referring to. And so this was detected by a metal detector near Ashland, North Carolina. And it was dug up they said it was around 2 feet deep next to a mound. And this is a real Chinese medallion, and it was inscribed with the emperor's insignia. And
this was considered undisturbed soil, or is one of those cases? Yes.
Yes, I mean it was undisturbed. It's been authenticated. It has proof that it's authentic because the original journal article described it in great detail, and it matches the description. So this is something that was recorded, way back in 1450. They talked about how it was made, and they described it, and the description matches the actual, the actual item.
So what do academics say about this?
Well, I mean, it's been vetted, and even it's been on the History Channel, and it's been well established that it's authentic.
To answer your question, Ricardo, they don't say anything about it.
They don't say anything. Okay, that I understand. And no, Jason, you misunderstood. They didn't went by land from the Indic to the Mediterranean. They went all around Africa. So they circumnavigate Africa and entered by the Strait of Gibraltar into Italy and then out again.
But they sailed the one through the Red Sea as well. So they truly circumnavigated all of Africa.
All of Africa. Because there was no connection. There is no Suez Canal as we have today. So, although there was an Egyptian... there was an Egyptian pharaoh that... There are some indications that he had at least attempted to create that.
Actually, he attempted to restore one that had pre-existed.
It pre-existed, yes. It's quite possible, yeah.
Okay, so one of the really interesting things that Lori found was a description of, the narwhals and the two-winged thunder god. I mean, she found all kinds of descriptions that match what was found in this country, and this talks about their trip all the way up to Cahokia Mounds, where they went to Monk's Mound, and then went to near where Mount Pisgah was, and they talk about the serpent worshiping. The social customs and moral codes are really interesting because they match what was found at Cahokia Mounds. The shark's tooth blade was found at Cahokia, and Gregory Perino back in 1953 was excavating in Mount 34, and he found a shark's tooth blade there, and it was literally embedded in maple wood. They made shark's teeth out of chert that were identical to real shark's teeth, but they were napped. They were basically making imitation replicas of shark's teeth that were full-size great white shark's teeth and embedding them in a maplewood club. The base of the club had copper on it, and it was capped with copper. The club is about the size of a tennis racket, so it's a big club. I mean, there's embedded shark's teeth all around the outside edge of this club, and so this thing was dug up in Mount 34 back in 1953 or 54, and it was after a flood when the flood washed out the area. Well, Gregory Perino found it and recovered part of it, and then but guess what? He left some behind. And in 2007, I had the chance to go through his backfill, and I found the rest of it. Personally, I found pieces that he left behind, and there were shark's teeth left behind by him, and so I recovered those and donated them to the museum there. And it's one of the greatest finds that I've been involved with, to be able to find something like that. It's just
Couldn't those shark teeth be from sharks from the U.S. coast?
Well, they were made of chert. I mean, they were napped shark's teeth. They were like replicas of real shark's teeth.
They're made from local limestone, basically.
Oh, I see.
Right. These were like limestone napped. These were like making arrowheads. They made shark's teeth that looked like, I mean, they made an arrowhead that looked like a shark's tooth, in other words. So they manufactured it to be in the shape of a shark's tooth. And these were embedded in the club. The one that I found in particular had been snapped off, like from where it was embedded. So it was apparently broken from impact, and it had been snapped off as part of, I think, when it was used forcefully to, to injure.
Decapitate.
Decapitate, right? Yeah, and so this club's currently on display at the Gilcrease Museum in Oklahoma, and so it was actually documented by the Chinese expedition. They saw it in use in the Cahokia Mountains, and they documented it as part of their social customs, and then it was found. So, I mean, there's really strong proof that they made it all the way to Cahokia Mountains, and it's just exciting because that is such a unique item. There's only been, I think that's the only one found, like it in the United States. And there's some of them that are made of real shark's tooth, but they're from Polynesia and South Pacific. They use real shark's teeth over there.
And South Africa.
Yeah, in South Africa, they use real shark's teeth. But the one at Cahokia Mountains was a church, replica of the ones that were real. And this site, Cahokia Mountains, it was well documented. I think it's just evidence that they made it all the way to Cahokia Mountains, and they saw the Piasaw, or they may have either added the Piasaw, which was near Alton, or witnessed it.
Jason is asking, are there mentions of mounds? Do they make mentions of what they saw going up the Mississippi as far as numbers of population encountered or anything? So I think he's asking about the Chinese reports on this.
Yeah, and I mean they saw the mounds. They described the people. See, these are what they saw. They saw people wearing all kinds of cow headdresses, split horn headdresses, hawk noses, full tattooing, animal teeth in their jewelry. These were the actual things they wrote about. The priests wearing black, and they talked about the religious practices. The great sun was carried everywhere on a chair or litter with 13 bearers and heralded by the blowing of trumpets. So they would announce their leader as they would come through the city, and the chief's feet were never allowed to touch the ground because they were called the sun spirit. And their astrologers believed in civic decisions for the construction. They had multiple.
Sounds a whole lot like the Aztecs.
Sorry, Rick?
I said it sounds a whole lot like the Aztecs.
Yes. Very similar to Aztec.
But there were other things that the Chinese noted too, and that was the methods of construction for the fortifications, and they noted that it had more than one wall around the compound at Cahokia, more than one depth of wall, which we know now archaeologically was true.
Yeah, that's right. It was multiple stockade or barricade walls that were surrounding the city. And they documented
another thing that they documented and was later found to be true at least one of the instances, maybe more, but archaeology wasn't as clear, is that the gates were constructed in such a way that a person could enter them easily, navigate them, but a horse or a bison or a larger animal like that could not. They didn't have to have closed gates to keep animals out. They just had to have routes that kind of intimidated those animals.
Right. And
why would they need horse gates if they didn't have horses? Just saying.
And they talked about domesticated buffalo, like water buffalo.
And bison and deer.
Yeah. bison
So
deer, people riding them.
apart from the extreme amounts of debutage that you found on the one of the forts that you, it's not, we don't know if it is a fort or not, that you visit.
Old Stone Ford is where you're talking about.
Yes. Uh, if it wasn't for that, I could even imagine that the small entry was to throw cattle in and easily keep them in, because the walls were not that big, but enough to keep a big animal in, and they would have a vast place to grass on, to feed themselves. But the problem is that the heavy amounts of debutage that you saw all over. So.
Right. It may not have ever seen a battle, but it saw preparation for one.
Because the entrance is weird. It's the way it narrows from such big area that is behind it, and then it narrows to one person.
One person can guard the entire 52 acres.
Yeah, it's strange. And you were saying, and this is from Lost America. I'm not sure if this is from one of the already published episodes, but I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
That when you were there.
Yeah.
You were saying that they were saying that the indigenous peoples didn't work with stone; they did palisades of wood. That's what you were commenting on the video. So who did those structures?
That is the belief, right? That is the belief, and that is why the antiquarians of the 18th, 19th centuries concentrated on whether it was a separate group of people, the mound builders, who were not the native Indians, as we knew them, or was there a third group that built with stone? Because the stone and then the soil erection, those things just didn't add up the way the white men thought they should. But my contention is people build with what they can find. But there is one very interesting part of that, and that is that most of the stone fortifications, as we know them, were erected in the 4th and 5th centuries AD. There were a few that were in the 1st century AD, mostly in the Ohio Valley. You get into the Tennessee and the Yakima and a few of the others, and the timing's different. The Ohio Valley in general had two different building surges for the stone fortifications in general, 1st and 4th century.
Does that align in your research with any arrival from other parts of the world into there of people to colonize?
Well, I made a pretty good case. I thought that the 1st century arrival, actually early 2nd century arrival, was probably Roman. Not necessarily Roman soldiers at first, but Roman soldiers as a consequence. Roman people, Roman citizens in the 1st century AD. And then later on, there were others, but the 3rd and 4th century saw a lot of stone structure built for fortifications. I don't know why. I'm guessing.
And so that would be what, more like Norse or Irish or
it could have been the natives getting really peaked at their neighbors. I don't know. But you also had the fortifications going to higher ground rather than next to the rivers. And this is an indication that you had different weaponry after that period of time. You had some kind of missile, ballistic weapon that you didn't have before. Something heavier usually.
And in the case of the old fort, there is a part where there is no wall because apparently it is too steep. Although I remember you saying that people would find it hard to come up carrying weapons or any kind of protection gear.
Or just to come up because it's so steep. And the footing is treacherous and no handholds, that kind of thing. And that's not to say there was never a wall there. There's no wall there now.
There is no wall there now. Okay, that would be my question. If there really weren't a wall, because if there was the opening, you can put logs of trees with
Yeah.
wood stick on the sides, and you make a ladder to go up anything. So
Right. But depending on how many people resided inside that 52-acre complex, they might have enough people to defend its entire perimeter, particularly if you had the obstacles of coming up the steep riverbank and then another obstacle of the wall.
but there are no records of any houses inside the structure, or is there?
Correct. No, I do not know of any confirmed habitations there.
And did they do ground penetrating radar there to see if there is something beneath?
I don't know of any GPR that's been performed there. It should be,
That's
though.
so strange. It should be done in that place.
Yeah.
Well, take a look at this. This is called the Weckstone tablet, and it was found right across the river from Cahokia Mountains at a place called Wicks, Missouri. So where the Merrimack River comes into the Mississippi River, it's right across from Cahokia. And this tablet was found in a mound there in Wicks, Missouri. It got the name Weckstone tablet because of the Wick, Missouri location it was found. So, but this one in particular was found near a rock wall, like Rick was talking about, and it had about a 20-foot high rock wall that was showing up there, and the two mounds were right next to the rock wall. This rock wall extended all the way up the hill, and it was very steep. And but this tablet is so finely engraved. It has all kinds of things going on in it. There's like a woodpecker or a duck, and then a whirlwind or tornado type of symbol here, engraved. Obviously, spiraling wind-like with sinusoidal waves coming up in it, and then this almost looks like a boat, like a double gunwale sailboat. With
Can you zoom in?
Yeah. Like I'm not sure if you can see that, but this is like the gunwales of the boat and a sail up here, rigged onto the sailboat. And
Does
then
it
over
look
here,
like a Chinese boat?
yeah, I mean the Chinese had sailboats like that too. But I think since this one has a Kirin, I mean that's a Kirin over here on this side. Very clearly, that's a Chinese Kirin symbol, Kirin.
I'm sorry, I know it's completely off topic, but the what I'm seeing on the right, I can't unsee it now. I'm seeing like the Eye of Sauron on the tower. That's what I'm seeing. I'm sorry, but
Yeah. And look at the other side. It has these hand engravings, like, and then a face peering up at it, into the spiral. This connects with the other sides, with all of the fine line engravings.
it's three hands, right?
Yeah, three hands. It looks like right hand, and their fingers are very long with long fingernails. Then these are spiraling around, and this was cast back in 1966. Eichenberger was the famous archaeologist in Missouri, and he decided to cast it. He wrote that this was from a large village site in the extreme southeast corner of St. Louis County, Missouri, on the second bottom of the confluence of the Mississippi and the Merrimack Rivers. And it was loaned for casting by Frank Maudry of Crystal City, Missouri. And so it's about 73 millimeters by 48 millimeters, weighs 36 grams. And so I visited this site to try to find out more about it. And it's literally, next to these mounds. There's two mounds side by side, and the symbols on it are really interesting. They seem to correlate with the Oots tablet from Central Missouri.
You said anything,
has-
Rick?
Okay, it's about this big.
Oh,
Yeah. So the Oots tablet, I did a comparison with the Oots tablet against that one, since it has a bird symbol on it as well, and it seemed to correlate well. There was a lot of similar engravings on both the Oots tablet from Missouri, and these angles are shown, like the solstice angle, the maximum lunar declination at midwinter, and the minimum lunar declination at midsummer show up on these tablets, and both the Oots tablet and the Wexstone share these symbols.
Vincent, what leads a researcher to look at that drawing and think these are angles and declinations in astronomical?
Well, I mean, I think the fact that the person is looking upwards, like on the tablet, they have a face peering upwards from the bottom, looking at hands like in the sky, almost like they're looking up at their hands and tracking the stars, like Rick was talking about.
Measuring with the hand.
Yeah, measuring with the hands up in the sky. This was like their science. I mean, the science of the day was, now we call it paganism, or studies of the stars, astronomy, all of the different things to do with the sky. I mean, this face at the base is just clearly peering up at the sky and holding their hands up, and it's like they're looking up at the night sky to see what the distances are, like Rick was talking about, between two objects.
Well, in the books for initiation to amateur astronomy, they show a hand, and they show that the hand open is 22 degrees in the sky.
Right.
The problem is every hand is different, but it's an average of 22 degrees.
Well, but here's another interesting thing. When your hands are bigger, your arms are usually longer too, and the angle remains the same. Just like your thumb or your thumbnail at arm's length is about almost exactly the same diameter as a full moon. Every time.
Right, so they had a need to standardize, and I think that's why they developed tools like the astrolabe, which were always consistent. They would be like a standard dimension for everybody. And but I think this predated the astrolabe.
And what are your thoughts about the Antikythera mechanism?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same type of technology, and they were tracking the movement of the stars in the sky, and they was able to predict solstices, and I mean,
that's
eclipses.
the right word. They weren't tracking anything; they were predicting. That's
Right, they were
exactly
predicting it to the extent where they could predict an eclipse, and with very well accuracy.
But that also means that if they had that aforementioned almanac, they could derive their longitude very easily because they had all the tools.
Yes, and I mean, so that's it goes back to an almanac. Well, almanac was just a way to record data and knowledge, and this was clearly symbols with meaning, and so this could have been like their initial almanac describing what they were seeing in the sky and recording its position. These things were clearly meaningful to the people that made them.
And this is also fine in undisturbed soil, or it's one of those that they don't accept very well?
No, I mean, this one is well accepted. It's at the University of Missouri. It's
they don't see anything controversial about it. Once they do, then it'll be unaccepted.
Right. They haven't yet attacked the authenticity of this one. Maybe it fell through the cracks.
But what they claim it's its source.
I mean, it's documented as from the mound, and it was excavated in 1889, and it was excavated in the mound
by credentialed people.
Yeah,
right,
well,
so,
I've talked very recently with archaeologists, and one of the things they told me is, well, archaeology done before the 60s were something very loose, and we can trust on the things said, let alone from the 1800s. That's just I can't say the word. So that it's academic, it's archaeologists' work, but they weren't really archaeologists back then, and they didn't follow the protocol. So it's not, you can't trust
No,
in
they
the reports of
invented the protocol.
Yeah, that's the thing. They like to say anything older than 100 years is no longer is no longer considered archaeological because they have to like basically think about it and look at it from an archaeological standpoint as to what happened then. I mean, the definition of archaeology today has changed since then. I mean, it's no longer um, the same. Of course, they use different techniques, but unfortunately, things like this, true treasures, are just pushed aside and they're not studied enough, and they need to be revered and studied because they're really important. And I mean, their knowledge transfer here that was clearly important to the culture that made it, and the
Right, but
fact,
that's counter to the dogma and the paradigm that these people were simple hunter-gatherers.
right,
Huh. Well,
goes
well,
against that.
I must confess, when I saw some examples of the Burroughs Cave tablets and even some other tablets from other places, some of the image, I look at them and I think they're so childish. That was my thought. They look like they were made by a child's mind. But very recently, when I was watching by accident a documentary about an Egyptian museum in Italy, they showed several tablets, and I look at them and said, "Wow, they look so childish." So
Almost exactly like okay.
exactly, they look so childish, and so I had to reframe my thought because my preconception that if I had to dismiss them is because they were made by a child, and that doesn't make them fake. Is that now I have a reference from a different point that are completely accepted, completely included in the period of time, and they look exactly like those tablets that I saw. They are very childish in looks. So in one place of the world they are criticized because they are absurd, but on the other corner of the world they are treasured in the museum and showed in big displays because they are authentic and created by the Egyptians.
But either set of images, if you take them and you compare them to the product of a caricature artist in a hotel ballroom, it's the same technique and took about the same amount of time to complete, about 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing how the American archaeology they look at things and they basically put it in a box, like saying it's too childish, so not to study it. But the artifacts found anywhere else in the world, they don't do that. And I mean, they look at it more from a scientific standpoint. And so I think the push needs to be to overturn that thinking and really just look at it more from a scientific standpoint and not so uh, subjectively. They really need to revisit the things that were found even more than 100 years ago and really and review it and study it.
So, Rick, if you had to pick one, what would be a tablet, no matter where from, that you would pick as an evidence of all the things we've been discussing here?
My favorite is a Burroughs Cave item that we've started calling the Scurvy Stone. And it had other designations depending on who was cataloging it and when. But it is basically written in Phoenician, and it is written as a 5 stanza, I'm almost sure, rhyme, but I don't speak Phoenician. I don't think anybody actually does. Um, and it is set up, to my notion, very much like a Burma shave sign, but it's telling people to recognize, it's telling sailors very specifically how to recognize the and then it has a symbol on the same stone that I've identified to represent either um, sacred lotus or water lilies, depending on which side of the ocean you're on, because they're both very high in vitamin C and can treat
Is there
scurvy.
any online image of that song?
There is I don't know how to direct it to you.
I
Keep
found a
talking.
site
I'll
that
find-
has hundreds of tablets photographed in detail from the Burroughs Cave, hundreds of them. But it's
Is it
chaotic
right now?
because they are not cataloged. They're just thrown away into the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Keep talking. I'll find one for you.
Oh, thank you. What can I say? Vincent, while we listen to this, any reply from the Cherokee?
Oh, it's been interesting this week. The official elected chief of the Cherokee has been very active on giving presentations, speeches, lectures, and he talked this week about the Sequoia syllabary and how this was a great accomplishment. It's essentially saying the writing is mightier than the sword. You know, it's their their way to defend their and protect their knowledge of the past, and it's very important that Sequoia syllabary was established or recorded and documented. So he's been very active, and he gave many presentations this week. I think it's exciting because he's really getting out there and promoting history and the knowledge of that the Cherokee had a written language, and they knew how to preserve their history. And so, I mean, I give him a lot of props for that. But as far as the Mount Pisgah relics, he has not responded yet. I've asked him about if he did get a chance to look at the relics at the Smithsonian, and still have not received any response back. So hoping to hear back from him about that, but just haven't heard back yet.
Okay. Well, we'll have to keep our hopes high. He's very busy at the moment, so that might be the reason why he hasn't replied yet.
Yes.
So let's wait and see.
And I mean, I pulled up some pictures of the Burroughs Cave artifacts like Rick was talking about. And, I could share the screen kind of to show what they look like. But there's quite a few varieties. And one of the great ones is the map stone, which shows the Great Lakes, and it has the dotted lines showing the routes of travel. I think that one is the symbol that really depicts what it looks like the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. The travel across the Michigan and Illinois, even into Louisiana from northern Michigan. And it's clearly got the Upper Peninsula shown of Michigan. All of the different symbols correlate to where copper mining was located. I think it really shows they had an understanding of mapping and the ability to know where the copper was located. So that is important. I think there's a lot of other correlations with the Mount Pisgah stones, like these animal effigy stones. They correlate really well. These are their totems or their clan symbols, and there's very strong correlation on a lot of the figurines look a lot like the animals carved at Mount Pisgah. So they seem to correlate with the clan symbols there, which I think is a really strong strong argument for authenticity. And it's been overlooked completely by the scholarly community because they never researched that. They probably don't even know that these are clan symbols, but in fact they are. I mean, they have animal symbols representing the clans of the tribes. So I think that's a strong path of study that should be pursued, to identify all the different clan symbols at Burroughs Cave.
Let's see if I can find that website. I found an interesting paper that Rick is going to like the title that says "The Cave That Never Was: Outsider Archaeology and Failed Collaboration in the USA."
Yeah, I've read that.
You read this one
Yeah, I'm not impressed.
from Joseph Wilson.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, this says some. I'm gonna share this first site with you, for you to share, Vince. Let me put it on our private chat, studio chat. Here's the link. It has only a few, but it gives us time where I look for the other website.
I'll bring it up here.
So I just sent you a link, Ricardo.
Oh, you did? To where?
An image of the scurvy stone, as it's called.
It's where the link you send me where?
Email.
Oh, here it is.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Oh, I think I saw this stone.
Yeah, I think you did.
I think I saw this stone. So, copy. Let's open it here. And let me share the screen. Chrome tab. Here it is. Share.
So this stone, this tablet, is in the John White collection. And a guy by the name of Brian Nettles ran this through Google Translate on Phoenician. And it came up with reading it from right to left. You've got it. Everything. It's in your mouth. And you know. Let's see. It's in your thoughts. It's in the number of days. Count the number of days. That's what it is. You've got scurvy.
Wow.
So reading it right to left, the way we would read Burma shave signs if they still existed, it would be 5 verses. And I'm almost sure it would rhyme because that's just how advertising is. And then that little emblem all the way on the left indicates the sacred lotus or the water lily.
Jason is asking a question that takes us a little bit back, and we'll get back to this. He says, so De Soto had to kidnap every chief of every territory he entered to keep from being attacked. Constant harassment by the natives. Did the Fang 2 make any mention on how they handled this?
Well, they brought gifts instead of guns.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. Exactly.
Yeah, it seemed to be a peaceful time, but they did talk about the plague, the Black Plague passing through at that time. Smallpox. That's right. The smallpox was traveling across the country. So I think that they were.
The heavenly flowers is what they called it.
Yeah, and it was a difficult time with a lot of disease.
A full explanation of how this whole thing with the Chinese and Cahokia evolved and ended is in a book by Laurie and Mark called Chasing Dragons. And I don't have a copy here with me. I'd say to Kevin.
But on the scurvy stone, it's interesting because it says scurvy can lead to significant oral health issues, including bleeding gums, loose teeth, gum disease, spongy porous gums. So this
cognitive disability.
Yeah, and even death. I mean, killed a lot of people. And well, that skull that we found the picture of from Mount Pisgah had a lot of dental indications of disease as well. Yep. So that's possibly, I'm just speculating that might have been from scurvy. But they, they identified that this could have been the cause of death because it was so severe. The teeth decay and even the jaw was was missing part of it from the infection of the dental area. And
So what you're saying is that he was a sailor?
no, not necessarily. I mean, just that they may have had scurvy, or they may have been infected. There's apparently an infection of the dental area, the back teeth in the mouth, that is believed to be the original cause of death before the post-mortem damages occurred on the skull.
Because in the case of the areas that the chronicles speak of De Soto, they speak about the Indians having amazing teeth, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. It did. It talked about the Indians having great teeth, great hygiene, and being, very impressive, healthy people. And so that's a good indication that the skull was from before them, earlier, before the people that lived there at the time of when De Soto came through.
Because, for instance,
Or
there is
just not
this.
there, or just
Go
not
on,
from
go on,
there
Rick.
at all. Maybe they just weren't from there at all.
I say that there is this some kind of rivalry between Marco Polo and the Venetian that supposedly was there before him, and this is compiled in the book that is called The City of Light. And so one of the descriptions that this individual makes, and this is about the 11th, 12th century, more or less, is that the Chinese had disgusting mouth habits. He speaks of disgust. He's a Jesuit, but he speaks of disgust about how they had an item to seek the holes of the teeth, and then that they had a cloth to clean it, but they all had these teeth filled with tartar, and the women even painted the whole teeth black, probably so that it wouldn't notice the rotten of the teeth, right? And it's a high contrast between that and the indigenous people that had apparently great teeth. So
Cereals. The Chinese were eating cereal and had been for 5,000 years at that point. North Americans, not so much. They had corn, but they didn't treat it like any cereal. They didn't make flour out of it.
and meat, lots of meat,
They ate a lot of meat.
and
Yeah.
fish too. Yeah.
But neither population did dairy.
But then we go to places like Poverty Point, and it seems that they were very good in agriculture too, right?
Yeah, but they still didn't do dairy. But they had more aquaculture, or available aquaculture, at least at Poverty Point, because they were right at the seashore. Cahokia was very rivery, and they had sturgeon that weighed 1,500 pounds. They had catfish, and yeah.
Vincent, can you show us those 3 or 4 or 5 pieces on the link that I sent you,
Oh, okay. Yeah, just a second.
just to give another examples of.
But back to the aquaculture for just a moment. There's a strong indication that they had purposeful, industrial level aquaculture at Cahokia. In between the mounds, they had ponds that were designed to grow fish. Probably had nets to actually segregate the fingerlings from the rest of them, much like we do today.
And what were they feeding the fish?
That's a good question. Nobody knows for sure.
Corn?
Possibly, but that would only be good for a few species. Most of the species that are used as I would call it prey for humans, or feedstock for humans, are more on the predator side of things. So they would need living prey, more smaller fish, insects, amphibians.
Yeah, the aquaculture, I mean, they would make canals and route water intentionally. I mean, there's evidence that they literally routed the water the way it was because of their engineering and manual effort to build these canals and conduct the water the way in the way it was arranged around
Yeah,
the
their
city.
waterworks were very sophisticated, far more than any crop of Manifest Destiny folks would want you to believe.
Yep, and I shared that trait. I mean, that cultural similarity is also found in Florida. The Seminole had major canals and waterways that were made.
Thousands of miles of them.
Yes, thousands of miles. And can you imagine the effort and how they would have done that? I mean, it's just incredible the amount of labor and effort it would have taken to make thousands of miles of canals. They even found canals over in Arizona, the Snaketown culture, the Anasazi, the Hohokam. They all had canals, and they would build these intentionally for making aqueducts and bringing in water for their crops. At Cahokia, you were talking about what did they feed the fish? Well, they had things like goosefoot and berry. I mean, like they had different types of you know uh,
Grain.
grains and rice. I mean, they had
But all of the North American grains, like you said, the goosefoot, which also went by a different name, but it was not a high starch grain like rice or wheat or rye or barley. Those are all high starch and they affect the body differently. And they're all, well, the wheat and barley, they're high in gluten. And gluten sensitivity is higher amongst Native American populations than it is amongst whites.
But take a look at this Burroughs Cave tablet engraving. It's apparently a human head on a bird body with cross hatching. Again, this is similar to a lot of the Cahokia tablets and the Mount Pisgah tablets. And on the head, it has this crescent with a circle in the middle of it. That crescent and circle is important because it was used across the world and in Egypt, and it was used in even found
Especially
on
with Horus and Egypt.
the mystery stone. I mean, the spherical stone from Massachusetts, which has a like a face in it. It also has this crescent and moon symbol on it.
Yeah, but it also has a teepee, which doesn't belong in Massachusetts. So,
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah.
The teepee.
That looks like the Egyptian symbol for Ba, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Horus, too. But
Yeah, that's that's interesting. And all these others seem to relate to Egyptian. Like this one, Pan. I think it's the Greek or the Greek symbol for Pan. I mean,
yeah,
that's it cuts me on.
that wants to be part of it.
Take a look at this.
Yeah,
Faces are carved with a helmet, and I mean, this almost
A
looks
very
Greek.
Celtic helmet. Or something.
Yeah, Celtic, Greek. I mean, Celtic. It looks like yeah, even and so I mean, the thing about the stones, they're all unique. They all have just some unique characteristic. Like that was their clan or their crust. That person was representing who they were or who they thought they were. I gotta let my cat out.
yeah, there's a message in there somewhere from the cat. But the whole Burroughs Cave thing is amazing to me because of the estimated so far 2,700 stones that were pulled out of the cave by Russ Burroughs. One of the stones has been proven to be a fake,
None.
and Russ doesn't remember that stone at all. So,
I
and the
don't
rest of them
understand.
haven't
I
been
don't
proven.
understand what he said. He said none was determined fake. I didn't
One
understand.
one was determined a fake.
One.
One out of about 2,700 has been determined to have been a fake because it had been a tombstone, and someone tried to scrape off all the letters and numbers from it as a tombstone and re-engrave it. But they didn't go deep enough, and you can still see part of it.
And how many were studied?
As far as I know, a couple thousand have been studied, but not with the same tools that Scott Walter found on that marble stone. He went for that one in particular because it was unique in that it was marble. Somebody stole a gravestone and tried to fake a Burroughs Cave stone.
Oh, I see. And he's Scott Walter in favor or against the Burroughs Cave?
Well, he started out very much in favor of it, and he found the fake that he'd paid good money for, and now he's not in favor of Burroughs Cave.
So he throw the baby out with the baby with the baby
With the
water.
bathwater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with that water. Yeah. Well, Jason,
I made it.
you were talking about in your message that you find it very strange that the Chinese were given friendly passage when De Soto didn't. And I think that what
Yeah,
Rick
yeah.
said
When
is
I was
the
driving, yeah.
attitude how you
Well, I didn't
arrive.
mean I find it strange. I was just curious if they notated on that. You know what I mean? Because it was such an ordeal for the Spaniards, right? That they had to come. You know, they had this solution where they had to kidnap. You know, every chief, and in any time where that was not the case, they were under constant fire. Like they talk about going down the Mississippi, man, and it was just like assault after assault after assault. So I'm just curious if there's, what there is that, if that gets
I
addressed,
can
like
tell
when they
you
were coming up the
why.
Mississippi.
Well, Rick, before you speak, I just want to say, is this one of the proofs of long distance communication? Because they already knew who was.
Bingo. See, I didn't have to say it then.
I'm sorry. Just couldn't help
Yes,
it.
to me it is. It is one of the strongest proofs too, by the way. The other part is that the Ho Chunk, northern Wisconsin, got the word to bring an army to meet up with the Spaniards down here in Indiana, and they brought 20,000 warriors, an army that not even the armored and cannon armed Spaniards could control.
And did they met?
According to the Ho Chunk, yes, it was a big battle, and according to Ho Chunk, Ponce de Leon was captured, imprisoned in his own manacles, and marched to Wisconsin, where he was held at trial for crimes against humanity, and found guilty and put to death. But the manacles remain.
And how does historians look at that description? Is it
They
in
don't care.
accordance with what they say?
No,
Or?
no, no, no. It's an Indian lore story. It doesn't mean anything because
Huh.
it's it's oral history.
So how did that man die according to historians?
Ponce de Leon made it
Yeah.
back to Cuba, heavily injured, died from the injuries eventually, and was buried there. But they won't let you test his DNA.
Huh. That's weird.
Well, I think if,
Yeah.
if you arrive as the Spanish and you immediately start pillaging and destroying, there will be word ahead of him.
Regardless of whether it was De Soto or Ponce de Leon who was attacked by the Ho Chunk and their army, the word got out to the entire North American population about what these people had done in South America. It's not like it was a vacuum that could not be addressed, that word couldn't get out. No, no, no. These people had regular communications between the two continents. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it was.
Sure. And so they would know, beware of this beard man in metal dresses.
Yeah, a whole company size of assholes.
And how many were they exactly? The men with Ponce de Leon and with De Soto. How many were there? Because there weren't that many.
Uh, 188. Does that sound right, Jason?
With Ponce de Leon?
Yeah. Well, actually, DeSoto was about the same. Both cut me strength.
Well, DeSoto, the numbers on total vary, but most archaeologists take 600 as the army that he had with him. I've seen several chronicles that put that at 9. And in the chronicle I read, they put the total disembarked men from the boat at around 1,100 when he stepped foot on the continent, including everybody. So
How many
I
boats
don't
are
know.
that?
The archaeologists tell me 600, but the chronicles move it. It's like up from 900 to 1,100. So,
Well, that's for grade school.
but what everybody comes to a consensus
I
on
don't
was he had
think
600
I don't
men.
think the Spaniards had that many boats to send just one army.
So, but I guess to touch on the question, I mean, why didn't they get more resistance? It may have been because of the smallpox, that the epidemic was rampant across that time frame, and they might have just been wiped
With the
out or dead.
Chinese, you're referring to the Chinese.
What year was that?
Well, 1430.
Okay, so
The
they already
Chinese
had
were
some European contact.
Right.
right, European and Chinese. I mean, this
Okay.
was like when the Chinese first arrived, and so it could have been that they were just reeling from this disease, and the epidemic wiped them out when they came across, and so they didn't really have the power to fight them. They were wiped out. So that's just my thought. That
In
maybe
that case, they might even receive some help from the Chinese because they were good in medicine.
yeah,
Well,
may
yeah, I mean, if it's post-European contact, right, then the smallpox description kind of works as a validation because we know that the smallpox came with the Europeans and wiped out most of the population. So, I mean, that's how that seems to work in my brain anyway.
Well, the other thing that came with DeSoto, of course, was 7 sows. 7 hogs that were almost
Yeah.
certainly pregnant when they got here. But that's only 7 hogs.
Oh no, he had they said like a couple hundred. He had several
When
hundred
he
pigs.
arrived, he had 7.
Yes.
By the end of his tenure here, he had 1,200. But that didn't come from 7 sows.
No, they could grow fast, but not that fast.
Exactly. There were already hogs here.
And speaking of the long distance
Some
communication,
numbers.
I know that I saw you taking the mirrors out of the boxes. Did you actually did the experiment?
Yeah, I've done it 2 or 3 different ways. Yes.
Are we
I
going
was
to see
watching
that in
your
North America or
Ricardo
not?
sent me your documentary on Chacalaca Mountain, and I remember the guy you were talking to there talked about them making mirrors with the mica and stuff as well.
Yeah.
And he was an archaeologist.
Yes. He was.
Yeah.
He is.
So I'm pulling up the numbers. Y'all can keep talking, but the numbers I was referring. And then before our time wraps, listening to you guys riding up the interstate here through this native territory, I had an interesting little epiphany, but it's actually more about lost civilizations, so I'll save it. But y'all keep talking, and I'll pull up these numbers here on DeSoto.
Well, yeah, let's do that. But the whole idea that DeSoto was the first to bring hogs is obviously wrong for obvious reasons. But the other thing is, both DeSoto and Ponce de Leon were in Peru at the same time doing the same things to people. And they both got rich beyond avarice. They did not need to do any more conquest or treasure hunting or anything else. And yet they both did. I think they were both after exactly the same thing that wasn't gold.
30 ships, 2 fleets.
Well, on the screen, I've got a picture of the Burroughs Cave tablet, and it kind of fits in well with what Rick was mentioning. The Big Dipper is on the tablet. It's right at the top with the Great Bear Ursa Major depicted, and it also has the
Can you
crescent
zoom in a
moon.
little bit more?
Yeah, just a second.
950 Spaniards of all classes met in Sanlúcar de la Beta to go for the conquest in La Florida.
930 ships?
950, yeah, it says 30 ships.
How many per ship then?
I don't know. It's a lot of material. I'm trying to scan real quick. Hang on.
Rick, you are a mathematician.
31 per ship.
31?
31 men per ship. So 30 ships, 930 men. But there were also horses. There was also 2 artillery pieces. There was 7 hogs.
30 ships. And this is not the only expedition. And this brings me back to the research I did on wood for copper. And there wasn't that much wood to create 300 ships a year. I don't think there was enough wood to do that.
Well, when you understand that by 1537, they were already raiding the Americas for everything, including timber. The entire island of Jamaica was covered in 200-foot tall mahogany logs. And now there aren't any.
I see. So they were building in the Americas too, in the coastal areas of the Americas.
Oh yeah, that was the first round of ships. The first 3 ships that Columbus brought over here. Only 2 of them went home. So they learned to build ships here so that they could get home, because this wasn't home. This was a place to be raided. They were the Vikings of their age.
Sure.
But with better armament.
And we
And
talked
a little
about
bit better.
they talked about the Cahokia Palisade, that wooden stockade wall around the city. This was completely made out of timber, and possibly they used the timber from rafts or canoes to help build that palisade wall. So they may have been repurposing the rafts and boats that all these people came over there from to the site to build these walls. And the palisade wall, stockade wall, could have just been reused, repurposed to rafts from the people that arrived there on site.
But we also, I'll say we, because Vince was part and parcel of this. We pretty much determined that most of the soil that makes up Monk's Mound, which is 525 feet long, 525 feet wide, 930 feet long, and 125 feet tall, one spot, is not from there. All that soil was brought in on said rafts.
Correct. All the soils from far away, and
There
it's
we go.
different colors. They had blue, orange, red, black, all different color soils that were brought in from far away on rafts. So yeah, they would have had to float this on a raft to the site
And
for the
do
specific
we find
purpose of
places where we can see clear that earth was removed from? Because there's a depression on the
here we go.
soil, or do we find anything like that?
Well, on the
There
site
are
there are borrow pits, but they don't even equal the amount of soil that would be used in the mound. So all
not even
borrow
in the little mound.
much less volume than the mound itself.
I didn't understand, Rick. What did you say?
I said that the borrow pitch would not provide enough soil for even the smaller mounds at Cahokia,
Right.
let alone most mounds.
So you have
But
any theories on that?
Yes, I do. I think that because Cahokia was the capital of this civilization, possibly also the holy spot of the religion, both at the same time, and the center of communication and commerce, that everybody somehow was obliged to contribute to this infrastructure undertaking. and they brought soil of different colors from wherever they were. The white soil may have come from as far away as White Sands in Mexico because it's got some gypsum in it. The blue, I've only found two sources. One of those was in west central Indiana, and the other one is out in Arkansas. Yellow comes from two or three different places. The red comes from Georgia, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And there are
So,
rivers linking all these places.
Yes.
yeah,
So they had to
yeah.
the river to get
So,
it.
Ricardo, just to throw these numbers out real quick now that I found them. Okay, so when he leaves Cuba, right? He's there in Havana, and he spends, I think, like a couple of months there getting everything ready. When they leave Cuba, 350 horses were taken on this expedition. It goes through here and it tells you how many horses were on each boat. I won't trouble you with that. And then to the number of men, when the military forces were embarked, with which those of the island who desired to go on this conquest, not counting the sailors of the 8 ships, the caravel, and the brigantines, they came to a total of 1,000 men. All excellent people, well trained in arms, with equipment for themselves, trappings for their horses, so that neither up to that time nor afterward has there been seen here such a good force of men and horses assembled at one place for any expedition to make the conquest of the Indians.
So they were
And it finishes
assuming
to say,
that there were Indians there already.
yeah, right, exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly. He took his fleet so well supplied with all kinds of provisions that one seemed to be rather in a very well provisioned city than navigating the sea. So there you go.
Yeah, but how did they knew that they were facing such resistance that requires such an army?
Well, there had been, so the whole first chapter
Ponce
here
de
that I've had to
Leon
skip
had been
over,
there.
this guy breaks down for you all of the previous, European trips, right, to La Florida. There had been several other smaller, and they didn't go very far. But yeah, there had been several
That's an
trips
Athens
before
handed to
DeSoto.
them.
Go ahead, Rick.
But then, of course, DeSoto was just taking everything he learned in South America, and automatically assuming and applying it to North America.
Well, yeah, but he was also the protege of Ponce de Leon.
Right,
Hey,
right.
Ponce de Leon went
So
to
everything that Ponce de
That's how he
Leon
learned to
loved,
kidnap and murder and human traffic and all that stuff. Ponce taught him, yeah.
yeah,
Ponce
they
de
went to
Leon is the
Peru.
guy that looked for the fountain of youth.
Fountain of youth.
That now it's open to everybody by the price of a ticket to visit.
Well,
Exactly.
Well, DeSoto, didn't he go to Inca or Peru first to get their gold and then went back? And so this was his second voyage.
yes,
Right,
yeah, he was
right.
already rich from
He
his
was he
conquest.
was expecting to find the wealth that he found in South America and North America for sure.
Right. So he was well versed in how to conquer, and that's all he was all about.
Yes. Yes,
And
that's where all his techniques came from. Yep,
Yeah, but I'm
precisely.
sure they knew that the type of civilization in South America would be very different of the type of civilization in
How
North
would they know? The only way they would know is if the people in South America could tell them about the people in North America. Because they had never been to North America. They couldn't know for themselves.
And yet they take 1,000 men.
yeah, so they knew to be very careful because I think they learned a lesson when they went to South America.
Well, I think Ponce de Leon
Yeah.
learned a lesson when it came to North America and conveyed his lessons learned right before he died. Or somebody did. May not have actually been Ponce de Leon, who made it back to Cuba. Just my guess.
But to the Ho-Chunk,
So you
it
guys were
was
talking
very
about
north.
the way they described. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Sorry, I was just saying, if the Ho-Chunk were the ones to capture him, then Ponce de Leon was very far north.
No, they took him back to Wisconsin from here in southern Indiana.
Oh, so they came down with the army, they fought him, and they took the body back with them.
They took a living person back with them, held a trial, found him guilty, and killed him.
Right.
Supposedly, that's what the Ho Chunk tale says.
Right. The Ho Chunk were essentially the police and the judge and jury all wrapped up in one. So they came down there to arrest him and take him to court.
They were the Allies and the Nuremberg trials.
Yeah.
Ricardo, how are we on time? I can't see because I just logged in.
140.
20 minutes.
Okay. I got a quick thing I want to throw out to everybody. I'm driving up just now up interstate and I'm listening to you guys, talking all about the native population. I'm driving through the land, but I'm also on an interstate and I've got cars, big fancy things flashing by me. I read the news this morning, and flashing through my head is all the quantum AI computers and jobs are going away and all this fancy advancement. And then up on the hill in Prattville, where Mobilla is, I see coming up and there's just city lights everywhere. And I think for a second, all right, 400 years ago, when the Europeans, roughly, right, 500, came over here, how foreign would it be if those gentlemen from that time suddenly stood here on this same land in this time, saw these cars flying by, saw these computers, saw these cell phones, right? It would be magic. It would be unimaginable. They would have landed on another planet. They couldn't have wrapped their heads around it, right? Now, that's 400 years. 400 years it took for us to go from them walking around everywhere they went, using some mica mirrors to talk long distance, to us sitting here right now, me talking to you guys on this shit, these cars flying by me, this stuff that is so far-fetched, it would be unimaginable, right? Now, why that thought came to my head is because of all the work we do with the lost civilization and all the arguments people always want to put out about how there's no way anything technologically advanced could have happened. I wonder if people really take, if you sit there for a second and you assess, hey, every single thing that I see around me that I consider a normal part of the world. I grew up in this world. You guys grew up in this world, sitting in cars, listening to music, going places on interstate. That shit's normal. If you took an Indian and put him in there, he'd think he was it'd be like us going in a spaceship. Right? It'd be the exact same thing. If a spaceship landed and we hopped in it, Ricardo, we'd feel like that native that I put in my car tonight and if I took him for a ride. Right?
Yeah, but
how much time did it take to get from there to here?
I just think that
now, final point, how long during the Younger Dryas could they have been left alone here in North America? 100,000 years? 200,000 years? Why? So what, you can obviously see it's a fresh thought, but why do we have such problems? I mean, fucking computers are not even 100 years old, right? Electricity as we know it is brand new, in the scope of less than 1,000 years. So how is it when we consider a population or a civilization being left alone for thousands of years, we can't conceive of them coming up with technology? It seems so stupid to me in that moment, because I'm sitting there on this land that 300 years ago, what I'm in now would be considered a fucking spaceship, right?
Well, it kind of maybe, but
well, no, not maybe. Not if I took a native from 400 years ago and I put him in a car and I drove him 100 miles an hour down interstate, past all these other cars, and I handed him my cell phone and I said, "Here, you can talk to the guy on the other side of the world." That would be just like if you and I got in a spaceship.
Well, I can see.
But what if he could already talk to somebody on the other side of the world?
Yeah, I mean, the technology.
Well, psychically, sure, but how else was he going to do it?
Yeah, but look at this perspective, because I don't think, and you have shown me this when you read the Chronicles, I don't think that when they arrived and looked to their cities, that they thought, ooh, these are just primitive guys. We're going to be like space age for them.
Oh, no,
I don't think so, because there would be, if you look at the landscape, it's not chaotic.
No,
It's geometrical.
they're
It's
thoroughly impressed.
precise.
Right.
So they are not seeing primitive people. They're just seeing a different culture
No.
that to them could be magical because it's different. It's
Even if we
pyramidal.
put
It's
DeSoto, I mean, forget about that, because if I put DeSoto in my car and handed him a cell phone, it'd flip him out the same as a UFO, right?
Sure.
sure,
I'm not
sure.
talking about the way the natives saw the Europeans. I'm talking
Okay.
about.
Well,
I'm trying to get
let me
people to
give you,
say,
let me give you another
when we
scenario
think
here.
of a former epoch of civilization having existed upon this planet, right? Mainstream archaeology, everybody scoffs and laughs at the idea of something advanced having existed before us. When if we would take a breath and realize everything we call advanced has happened in the past 150 years, right?
Well, there are a few things that have happened that, well, last 200 years that are far beyond what we
Yeah.
can do right now. And I'll give you one very good example. His name was Tecumseh. You might have heard of him. He was a war chief of the
Yep.
Shawnee. In the War of 1812, or I should say before the War of 1812, he went around to all the quote unquote civilized tribes and said, here's a bundle of sticks. I've counted them for you. When the ground shakes, start a fire and burn a stick every day. When you run out of sticks, meet us on the Wabash and we'll kick William Henry Harrison's ass. In other words, he was predicting when the great earthquake of 1811, 1812 would happen, and then telling the tribes, because they were in different places, they each had a different number of sticks in their bundle, and they knew how long it would take them to make the trek.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Is that
So-
the same one that predicted the eclipse?
No, that was his brother, his half brother. Actually, I think Tecumseh made the prediction and the prophet took credit for it. That's my supposition. However, that's not the only thing that Tecumseh did, though it is amazing as far as magical capabilities. He cursed William Henry Harrison and said that any president of the United States elected in a year that ended in zero would die in office. Now, he made this prediction in 1809, 1810, I forget exactly. William Henry Harrison was elected in 1840 and died after 40 days in office. And Lincoln, Chester A. Arthur, all these guys who were elected in years that ended in zero, right up to, but not including Ronald Reagan, died in office. So Tecumseh's curse held for, 160, 70 years, whatever it was.
And Jason, if I'm not mistaken in my almost fairy tale concept of technology from the megalithic age, I think that what we consider today to be the cult of the ancestors is a misconception, because when they go to these ceremonies, into these megaliths, they actually hear the ancestors. So it's not something that is revered as something of the past. It is actually real, because the stone can keep the memory of what it's imprinted during the ritual. So when you repeat the ritual, you can access different parts of information, including what was left behind by the ancestors. We are today trying to do that, to use stone to keep information in. And what we found is there is no limit so far to the amount of information that can be placed in just 1 cubic centimeter of quartz. They can't top it up. It keeps getting information. Now imagine trillions of tons of a matrix of crystal matrix of the surface of the earth, connecting all these megaliths. Why they all celebrate things at the same time? Why the rituals take a week so that maybe distant places can be connected? Because we know that the speed of communication by the crystal matrix, it's about 7 kilometers per second. So it would take time to reach distant parts, right? We found places where we see sound being projected 200 meters away, of 660 feet, without no explanation how the sound is appearing on the different building on a different part of the field at this distance at the same volume. And this was done almost 4000 BC, right? So when you talk about ancient technology, I think not of electricity and computers and silica, but of a technology that used the materials of
No.
nature, stone itself.
But
No,
wanted to-
I agree. We're not talking, cell phones and cars, and for sure, I use that analogy for the modern man, right? So that we could try to understand. Look how quickly and how in very little time, everything that now, at least our generation,
That we take for granted immediately.
right? But it has literally been like I call 100 years a person, because that's a lifetime of a person. So it's been like 2 people ago that everything we now just take for granted as modern world has been in existence, right? And so just sitting with that thought, it just started to really bother me about how adamantly people shut down the ideas like you were talking about, not like cell phones and shit existing back then, but levels of advanced technology, shit that could build the pyramids and things far more impressive.
But yeah,
Jason, I'm from '75. I've been from the typewriter to the electronic typewriter,
Same.
from the
same.
the telex, the first printer.
Same. But
I've
remember,
been through
Ricardo,
all of those things.
Everything we get is 50 years behind its invention, right? So by the time technology makes it down to the people in control are at least 50 years ahead of us. Some people now say probably more like 100 to 200, right? Sure. But you can count on 50 years worth of development before shit gets released to us, right?
But hey, like Rick was saying about Tecumseh, well, I went to the New Madrid Museum, and right next to the mace that was on exhibit there, they had a statement that said the February 7th, 1812 earthquake that caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards was attributed to Tecumseh stomping on the earth and making this earthquake happen. Literally, like that he did that, and it was documented before the earthquake happened. And this caused the Mississippi River to flow backwards for several hours. So I mean, it's a recorded story from the time. But the thought that
did he have a stick that he made from a snake like Moses, or was it
actually there was a snake there that was also like mummified, and it had been found with the mound in the New Madrid mound with mace and everything. So that's true. They had a snake in it. And yeah.
Well, but this also making this whole full circle in our next 8 minutes, getting back to the tens of thousands of miles of canals that were in North America, that were in North Africa, that were in, the Saudi Peninsula. These people were capable of moving things on water tens of thousands of years ago. So were they technologically advanced? Well, yeah, their hydrology was top notch. Their hydraulics are probably top notch as well, which is how they moved those 8-ton blocks 430 feet in the air.
Right. Monk's Mound, I mean, just to build Monk's Mound out of soil from different parts of the country, 21,658,523 cubic feet of earth was moved there, and that's cubic feet. I mean, this would have taken so much work and so much effort. They moved all this.
So 3 or 4 beach buckets with material.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that's just the easy part. The hard part is they did it in a single season.
Yes, that's the amazing part. All this in a single season without any rain or erosion between the layers of construction.
And it's wild, man. When they tell me it took 20 years to build the pyramids.
22. So this North America were much faster. They worked much faster.
Much faster.
Much more highly organized.
Well, you kiss my ass with the pyramids being built in 22 years. That's just a load of horse shit. I'm sorry to use that language, but that's how strongly I feel about that.
Never forget that Sintra Mountain passed from a desert to a tropical forest in probably less than 10 years, and people say 20, but it's still impossible just the same. So,
Yeah,
and these
there's-
things happened, and these things happened. So,
Yeah. So the
Dude,
thought.
there's a cathedral, and where is it? Is it Spain? It's not Portugal, Ricardo. I think it's Spain that they've been working on for something like 150 years, and they just finished it last week. They just got the top piece put on it, right? I mean, 22 years for that? No, 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 and fucking no.
yeah, but the churches that were built in the 11th century, if you go and look the time that they took to build them, it was like 10 times faster than the people that start building on the 14th century. Why? Why would the others take more money,
What?
more people, and take more time to build?
Why do the three great pyramids look nearly fucking pristine, but every single one they built afterwards is crumbling pile of dirt? Exactly,
Yeah.
to your point. None of it
and,
makes sense.
and they consider that the one that was built before, the bent pyramid, that it was a failure in construction and not intended to be
Yeah,
bent
and then
at
we
all.
just boom figured out. Let's just make the bricks 20 times bigger and make the thing 30 times bigger, and then we
to make
can
it
do
easier.
right.
To make it easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's so insane. I don't understand how people. I mean, I do. They get indoctrinated, right? Okay, but if they're using their own heads, I don't see how they accept any of this crap we're talking about. You know, it's just none of it makes any sense.
So like Rick was saying, I mean, they just don't acknowledge the things like the volume of Monk's Mound being built in a single season. They don't acknowledge the tablets that have engravings on them from Burroughs Cave. They shut down everything that would show a technology and a advanced civilization,
Yep.
so that they don't have to deal with it. And
Yep.
Right.
But I would love to have one of those persons that have such strong arguments against it to come here in an open forum and communicate in a civilized way so that we can understand that either he can't see it or what arguments does he have to present against it, right? Because outside the aggression, there must be some reasoning, right?
You'd think.
You would think, yeah. I mean, you'd think. I mean, I like the simple one, guys. The pyramids. I get so stuck on why is every other one falling apart? And you know what? I like you say, Ricardo. I would love to just sit and listen to somebody, just simply like I'm a 10-year-old, tell me how technology got immediately worse, immediately much worse. Like how, you know, that's what they're when they tell me the pyramids were built 4,000 years ago in 22 years. They're telling me that immediately after they did that, they started fucking sucking at it. So I would love for somebody to calmly tell me,
Look,
how
don't forget,
how did how did that happen?
you live in a day and age where no one is able to explain to you how your cell phone works, how a television works. No one can explain to you how it works. They only can say that if I connect this with this and this with that and add this electricity, I get this result.
It's true.
Sorry, Rick.
It's true.
I can tell you how it works. But anyway.
You can explain me
Yeah,
how a television works?
Yeah, well, I can tell, digital or analog for that matter. I grew up with tubes. I learned electronics when there were arcs involved.
Yes, I understand that, but you can't explain me how those tubes produce a defined image.
Well, yeah, actually, I can.
You can?
But
Okay.
not in the 2 minutes we have left
No,
here.
no, okay. I will be eager to.
Cathode ray tube, yeah.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
another
is there?
2 hour session.
I think I received an email with a new video on the Lost America at Patreon. There's a new video uploaded.
Yep, and I'm going to redo all of the teaser trailers that are on YouTube and TikTok and update the connections and augment the teasers with more information. I have a very busy time ahead of me.
Okay, and see if you can start selecting segments that we can watch here and then discuss
Yep,
together.
will do. That's part of it.
Okay, okay. So, Vincent, any final recommendations? I love those things.
Yeah, cathode ray tube. It's like what this technology is.
Yeah.
The vacuum that would transfer electrons. So that's why it works on TV too. So it's amazing technology.
I like to pull the sparks without touching the glass.
Yeah, just barely touch it.
No, no, they actually come out of the glass into the finger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good show. It was fun. Everyone, thanks for listening and enjoyed
I
it.
was just seeing if Jason came back just to say goodbye. Rick, any final recommendations?
Yeah, there's all kinds of news if you follow it. There's some heartily recommended archaeological news out there this week. Go for it.
Okay. Any topic particularly?
There's shipwrecks and metallurgy and all kinds of stuff happening. So
Okay. Have to check it out. Well, I don't think Jason is coming back, so
I don't
thank
think
you all.
he's able.
Thank you all for staying with us, and we'll see you all in a week time. Thank you. A very fond farewell to you all.